we were up in executive session. We're going to reconvene now in open session. I apologize for us being a little late. We had some business to discuss upstairs, but we will go ahead and get started right now. So I'm going to turn it over to the Superintendent, Liz Kirby, to go over awards and recognitions.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Good evening. We have several folks that we want to recognize this evening. First, we will start with our AP Scholar Awards. We will be recognizing an outstanding group of seniors from Heights High School. These students have demonstrated college-level achievement through their performance on AP exams, earning Advanced Placement Scholar Awards. We are so very proud of you all. We know that you don't represent the entire group, and some students have graduated. When you hear your name, please come up front and center. We'll take a group photo after all names have been read, and before you leave, we'll have a gift for you at the front desk. The AP Scholar Award is granted to students who receive scores of 3 or higher on 3 or more AP exams. Those students are Sydney Ball, Joshua Bellion, Brielle Boyd, Jonah May, Charlotte Pizzell, Madeline Schelt, Rajani Tabor, and Jesse Titus. The AP Scholar with Honor Award is granted to students who receive an average score of at least 3.25 on all AP exams taken and scores of 3 or higher on 4 or more of these exams. The following students receive this award: Rohan Bruce, Isaiah Hamilton, Audrey Wong, Braden Kellner, and Abra Lisowski. The AP Scholar with Distinction Award is granted to students who received an average score of at least 3.5 on all AP exams taken and scores of 3 or higher on 5 or more of these exams. Those students are Ava Collier, Nathaniel Frey, and Emma Hubbard. And for those of you who do not know, AP courses are extremely rigorous, and earning those scores of 3 or higher is quite an accomplishment. All of these students have demonstrated outstanding performance and academic excellence, and I know that we are all so very proud of them. Please join me in giving them a warm round of applause. Next, the National Merit Scholar Program recognizes high school seniors who have earned exceptionally high PSAT scores. Heights High senior Rohan Bruce was named a 2019 National Merit Scholar semifinalist and has the opportunity to advance to the finalist level and qualify for the National Merit Scholarship. To put this achievement in perspective, semifinalists represent just 1% of high school seniors in the entire nation. Rohan, we're so proud of you, and we thank you for representing Heights High on the national stage.
Here, here.
Rohan is not here, but we will still clap for Rohan.
Yes, we will.
All right. This next recognition is for Nancy Rich, the Heights High art teacher. We have with us tonight a guest from the Expressions Art Program at Cleveland Clinic, Brian Flom. Brian is here to recognize our very own Heights High art teacher, Nancy Rich, for her dedication to the program. Come on up, Brian.
Thank you, Superintendent Kirby. And thank you to the members of the board for this opportunity. I am grateful to be able to publicly thank and recognize the Cleveland Heights University Heights teacher for the extraordinary work she has done in our Expressions program. So since 2005, Cleveland Clinic Expressions has engaged over 13,000 middle and high school students from across the state and around the world in the creative exploration of science and medicine. So through project-based peer-to-peer learning, students creatively interpret research conducted by Cleveland Clinic summer interns, producing an amazing array of artistic, literary, and even mathematical interpretations of the science. since 2014, Nancy Rich has not only helped her students participate in the program, she has helped them excel in it, challenging them year after year after year to transform this complex medical research into powerful works of art, while challenging her students to experience measurable improvements in science literacy, collaboration, critical and creative thinking, self-expression, empathy, the list goes on and on. The program impacts students, but that doesn't just happen. It's not built into the program. It's a result of the time and the talent and the passion that teachers like Nancy put into programs like Expressions. So it's my honor to recognize Nancy with an Expressions Teacher Celebration Award. And this is celebrating her participation in the program for 5 years. And the plaque has a quote from Albert Einstein. It says, "It is the supreme art of the teacher to awaken joy in creative expression and knowledge." And it's really been our joy at Cleveland Clinic to see you, Nancy, and the work that you've done with students year after year. And so we are grateful for what you're doing, and we are excited to hopefully collaborate with you for many more years to come. So thank you. And in closing, I just also want to thank you, Superintendent Kirby, and the board, and all the teachers who've done programs like Expressions. It really takes a lot, and teachers like Nancy go above and beyond their normal, daunting, day-to-day responsibilities to really enrich students' lives. So thank you, and congratulations.
Absolutely.
Liz, can I say something real quick?
Oh, please.
So, I mean, as board members, we all have some kind of connection to the schools. For me, it was kids that went there. And I have a daughter that was directly impacted by Nancy, and if it wasn't for her, 5 years ago, she wouldn't have been a part of that program. And this is a direct result of a phenomenal teacher doing pulling something out of a kid that you would not know she had.
Wonderful.
But she has it. So I'm grateful, and we obviously all are grateful. Thank you.
Thank you. So next in our recognitions tonight, a group that accomplished great tasks put before them in preparation for the reopening of Roxborough Middle School. These men and women in particular worked on the school kitchen, which was originally only supposed to receive new lighting. They took care of that, plus they replaced the flooring using ceramic tile left over from the high school renovation, responsible with those funds. They removed all the kitchen equipment, built a wall, and reorganized the space, creating a more efficient workflow. They also installed new drains and painted the entire space. When you hear your name, please come up front to take a group photo and receive a certificate, so you can just come to the front and stay, then we'll do a group photo. So from the trades, Teague Dog. Taj, sorry. My phonics isn't great. Taj Dog, George Coleman, Greg Boone, James Patton, Mark Vitko, and Ricky Newman. From the grounds crew, Kelvin Robinson, Eric Brazil, David Hawkins, Steve Gilbert, William Clark, and Jamar Butler. Our custodians, David Moss, Tony Jeffrey, Deonta Jackson, Jason Franklin, and Norm Strickland. And bus drivers, Mike Lewis, Otis Colvin, Christian Johnson, Dorian Pace. Jody, if you want to come down, we'll do the picture. So this really just represents the best of the Cleveland Heights University High School District, a team that came together to support, working late into the evenings, early in the mornings, over the weekend to make sure that the facility was ready and in tip-top condition for our scholars. And I just love to see across the different trades how everyone came together and worked together. We thank you for your dedication. We thank you for your hard work. It is a beautiful, beautiful kitchen space there, and we are so encouraged by what you have done to help the students. Thank you so much.
And Liz, I'd just like to say a special thank you. I know that all the people that we honored tonight are usually people who are working very hard behind the scenes, and they don't often get the recognition they deserve, so thank you.
Thank you. All right, Tiger Team Members of the Month. Finally, tonight we have the opportunity to recognize our Tiger Team Members of the Month for September. These Cleveland Heights University Heights staff members continuously go above and beyond to create a culture of excellence in our district. Their efforts do not go unnoticed, as each honoree was nominated by a colleague and in some cases multiple colleagues. We have several of the chosen honorees with us tonight, so when I read your name, please come forward to receive your certificate and take a photo. From Heights High School, Karen Castor. From the Delisle Center, Nakia Cleveland. From Monticello Middle, Jeff Johnston. From Rocks Middle, Christian Smyrtle. From Boulevard Elementary, William Porter. From Canterbury Elementary, Emily Hess. From Fairfax Elementary, Cindy Rocco. All right, come on up, Cindy. From Garrity Elementary, Lisa Evans. From Noble Elementary, Becca Larson. From Oxford Elementary, Deanna Whitfield. From Rocks Elementary, Miriam Sy. And from the Board of Education, Keisha Cox. This concludes our recognitions for this evening.
And now we will move on to our student reports.
Good evening, my name is Caroline Imka. I am a senior at Cleveland Heights High School. Thank you very much. I am here to do a little report about all the things going on at the high school. So it is that time of year again. Cleveland Heights High School is putting on our fall annual musical. This year we're doing Damn Yankees. 4 nights, October 30th at 7 o'clock, November 1st and 2nd at 7, and November 3rd at 4 o'clock. That's a matinee. And last Friday, go Heights, our Heights Tigers football team beat Walsh Jesuit. Round of applause for our Tigers. Second home game, we beat them with the final score of 38-30. And be sure to come and support our Heights Tigers. Our homecoming game is Friday, October 11th at 7, and we're playing Bedford, so be sure to come show some support this homecoming season. Thank you so much.
It's worth pointing out that the week before, our Heights Tigers beat another team from the city next door 50-6. Rule number 1, beat Shaker.
All right, now we're moving on to statements from the audience. So the first speaker is Melissa Wood, and the topic is our schools.
I will read so I don't go over my time allotment. Good evening, members of the board and Superintendent Kirby. My name is Melissa Wood. I am a parent, alum, PTA member, and substitute teacher. I come here tonight to make a statement about a variety of interconnected issues relating to our schools. The first time I spoke before you was during the last major reduction in force 4 years ago. My concern then was maintaining key aspects of our special education program. I came again last year in response to the decision to bring police and police dogs into our schools to do a drug search. I come today to address similar concerns. Tonight I will organize my remarks around our new superintendent's stated core values, because I have hope that under her leadership we can address these problems. First, under the value of student-centered and equitable practices, I want to ask about the Roxborough Middle School policy that excludes 8th grade students who don't meet a certain grade point average from participating in the graduation ceremony. As I understand it, these are students that we are promoting to 9th grade, but because they didn't show sufficient hard work, I think that was the word at curriculum night, they are not allowed to celebrate with their peers. If one was to concoct a recipe for school alienation for both student and parents, you can't get much better than this. Do you consider this a student-centered policy? What are we hoping to achieve by shaming and marginalizing these students and their families? If a child is promoted, she should be allowed to celebrate it. Otherwise, we are reinforcing a two-tier system at our high school. Those we educate to be governors and those we educate to be governed. Additionally, under student-centered and equitable policies, I want to address class size at our high school and responsiveness to teacher concerns. I believe our district advertises a 14-to-1 student-teacher ratio. When I walk into many of the high school classrooms, I am met with close to 30 students. A 10th grade American history class has so many students they are forced to perch on the cabinets at the back of the room. A 9th grade integrated biology classroom has 30 students, 60% of whom need specialized instruction. That class would need at least 3 teachers if all those learning needs were to be met. Are these students receiving a fair and equitable education? Are the teachers able to form relationships and differentiate with this class size and gen ed to special ed ratio? I have the privilege of knowing some of these teachers. They are educators with a fierce commitment to public education and the success of all their students. Their concerns have not been met by their building administrators. As a tireless cheerleader for this district, I always argue that families with special needs kids are best served by our schools. I would like to continue to be able to say that. Finally, both of these issues are more perplexing because no one seems able to take responsibility. Is the 8th grade promotion policy the brainchild of Principal Coleman, or did it originate higher up? And why is it that when a high school teacher tries to address the problem of class size and special ed percentages, she is told that it is unfortunate but nothing can be done? Who is in charge? We seem to employ many coordinators of special education at the board level, but this issue still goes unaddressed. Is this purely about funding? Teachers are told that it may be bad this year, but it is only going to get worse. The emphasis on the OSTs has already sapped creative energy, but these class sizes make failure inevitable. Morale, as you can imagine, is low. At some point, the rhetoric of every child matters becomes harmful when the lived experiences of our students directly contradict those sentiments. Students know when their teachers are stressed, and they do not feel important when class size is so large that they cannot get the teacher's attention. We have a new student code of conduct, but we have lost our dean of students. And we still have no structures or adequate training in place to attempt restorative justice practices. I am confused and disheartened. We have a levy coming up. I plan to work for it as I have always done. My oldest daughter graduated last spring and is in college. She has found that her Heights experience prepared her very well for the challenges she now faces. My 7th grader is thriving at Roxborough Middle School. Each time I walk into Heights High, I smile at the energy, enthusiasm, and creativity of our students. They are learning to advocate for themselves, but they deserve more. If I were to ask one thing, it would be the same thing that I have asked each time I have come before this body. That is to get into the schools, visit the classrooms, talk to the teachers and the students, and see for yourselves. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Melissa. And our next speaker is Bob Ivory. Bob did not list a topic, so please state your topic
Yes.
as you begin. Thank you.
Good evening to board members, Superintendent Kirby, and I apologize for not stating the topic. I really was just kind of wanting to come and share the work that I work with the Closing the Achievement Gap effort for Cuyahoga County. Students of Promise is the program here at Heights. This is actually the 5th year here in the district, and proud to say that your scholars are thriving, I believe, in the program. And according to the evaluation that Case did on the program a few years ago, that we are, I think, on task to doing what we set out to do. But beginning the school year, I just wanted to come by and acknowledge you all, and there are some board items I'm sure that are going to be approaching you soon because we have fall trips and spring college tours all out of state. I believe we're going to Philadelphia in the fall in November, to Temple University and Lincoln, and well as other cultural activities. And then in the spring, we look to go to New Orleans this year. We normally go every year to Morehouse, Selma, Spelman, Clark, Atlanta, that whole Atlanta HBCU trip. This year, we are going to venture a little farther south and a little more extensive program, if the resources allow, and go to New Orleans, to Xavier and Southern and LSU and some universities there. And in the morning, we will be departing from Heights. I think you have 12 students that Ms. Mims will be taking. We're going to Columbus to the My Brother's Keepers initiative, which was former President Obama's launched that effort, and now Senator Sherrod Brown has taken that mantle. But statewide, there will be students and community folks going to Columbus, and we're going to take a contingency of students from the program, from all the participating high schools, so they can share in that experience. And as always, when the Students of Promise travel, they travel well-read, well-spoken, and definitely represent with excellence, and the Heights students do that like no other. Finally, I want to share the students here partnered with the Red Cross. I'm on a committee there, and they did a PSA, which was for Sickle Cell Awareness Month. And one particular student, I think Christian Green, did an excellent job, and the PSA was so well received that the Red Cross launched it nationally. So the piece that we videoed here through the Students of Promise also now is a national PSA for American Red Cross to increase blood drives in students in communities of color. So I just wanted to come forth. I think Superintendent and I, we have something scheduled soon to formally introduce and go over our initiative and some of our successes and the evaluation. And I believe County Council also budget hearings are taking place in about a month. So hopefully, prayerfully, favorably, this model will continue and it will be appropriated for the next 2-year cycle. But I just wanted to thank you as partners in the last 5 years with this model. I enjoy working with the students here at Heights.
Great.
My children went to Heights. My brothers went to Heights back in the 90s. I was in that first busing class in West Tech, but I still have Tiger kind of in my genes. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I ask that, I would love to see the sickle cell PSA.
Oh, absolutely.
Is there any way that perhaps you could get it to Kathan and we could share it?
Yes, I'll email it and make sure that everyone has it. And I believe we've, because I know you post a lot of our piece on the website.
Kavanaugh on the website.
Okay, perfect. I will definitely do that.
That'd be great. I look forward to it. Thank you for your work.
Thank you. So that concludes our statements from the audience. We're going to move on to our consent agenda. And for those of you who are not familiar with it, a consent agenda just allows us to group a variety of topics that are routine business items that we vote on, and this allows us to move through the agenda more quickly. So do I have any, or do I have a motion to consider the consent agenda?
So moved. I second.
Any discussion on the consent agenda?
I want to thank publicly all the staff members who put a lot of time into answering my questions, because I know I had a lot of them this meeting.
That's good.
And one of the things we're voting on, well, 2 of them, are actually the link field trips for Students of Promise, which I knew nothing about until I got all of those links. So thank you, because I got to read up on it. And the other thing I want to mention in public is the electric contract, which, for those who are worried about solar panels, does not in any way prevent us from going forward with that in the future, should we choose to do so. Just wanted to make that clear. Thank you.
And I would just like to, you know, we always try to sort of pause and recognize the generosity of our community. We have, tonight, we are officially accepting donations. I think there must be at least 30 donations of services and prizes of different sorts that were raffled off by our robotics club. And any corner of the economy of Greater Cleveland, it seems, they were all represented here. So just thank you to all of those businesses. And then there's an individual contribution that I thought was noteworthy. And that is, we had a member of the community donate just to one of the schools for teacher materials, just to supplement that, which I thought was just such a kind way to engage with that school, which is clearly meaningful to that family. So thank you for all of the donations.
Can I make one clarification?
Please.
The robotics fundraiser hasn't happened yet.
Oh, wow. Well, then people, you should go out.
Sorry.
And,
Still,
yeah.
you can still bid on those items.
I mean,
It is, oh, when is it? Hang on, I gotta get to my calendar.
I know that they did a car wash, I think, this past weekend. I just assumed that this one had,
Yeah, no, it's happening. And now, of course, I can't
There's some
find it on my
great-
calendar.
donated.
Alan,
I'm
when
going to
is the
say, I bet
fundraiser?
Alan knows.
October 11th is homecoming, so maybe it's the 12th.
That would be it.
Yeah, I've lost, nope, sorry?
The 19th?
The 19th, thank you.
Is that what you're?
Yes, thank you,
Yep,
Kathan.
that's actually in my calendar, I guarantee you. That's great. All right, I'll bring my checkbook.
Because now you know what the prizes are.
Yes.
Okay, sorry about that.
Any other discussion? Mr. Gaynor, will you call the roll?
Ms. Wright?
Yes.
Mr. Posh?
Yes.
Mr. Hines?
Yes.
Ms. Serini?
Yes.
Ms. Lewis?
Yes.
And that brings us to the superintendent's report.
All right.
So, Ms. Kirby.
I'll jump right in. I have 4 topics I want to briefly touch on for my report this evening. One is just to reference the multiple opportunities for community engagement that we've had during the month of September. We had our annual Family Community Day on the 14th. We've also held the community open houses both for Monticello Middle School and also Roxborough Middle School, in addition to the elementary school open houses, which also happened in the month of September. I held my final meet and greets, not the last opportunity to meet and greet me, but in those formal structured spaces also were held in September. The last one was held at the community center. As it relates to student engagement, we did restart the student cadre, so I was able to meet those students that served on the cadre last year, the superintendent's cadre, and we will be asking other students who are interested in participating to join the cadre as well. The group has agreed that their task will be to be the advisory body as we wrap up the strategic plan and get ready for the 2025 strategic plan as well. The cabinet is in the process of updating our strategic plan, so we're really clear on where we are as we begin that process. And we have started the strategic planning process as well, so that we're ready for a strong start in July for the 2025 strategic plan. As it relates to some of the public comments that were just shared, we have been looking at the class sizes and are now assessing where we are and what adjustments need to be made. So we are aware of that issue, especially as it relates to those students with IEPs. And so we're working with the high school team to see how we can get some of those classes leveled out now that the school year we're well into the school year. And from the climate perspective, we have been engaged in proactive planning around positive cultures and climates at all of the schools. So in addition to looking at the data on where we are with our climate, we have developed a rubric, a positive school climate rubric that we'll use to assess where we are with our climates, to make needed adjustments, to ensure that students, staff, parents are safe, happy, healthy, and growing in the school and school communities. Related to that is looking at resources as well. So we are aware of the dean issue and are now looking to see how we can provide supports to schools, because we do know that the dean of students is an important position as relates to maintaining positive relationships with students and a positive school culture as well. So that's definitely on our radar. We know that that's a challenge at schools without that position. Finally, I will conclude my report tonight by inviting Dan Pentecost from my Bond Accountability Commission to come up and share with you findings of the work that the BAC has been doing over the course of the middle school renovations.
Good evening, excuse me, everyone. Dan Pentecost, current chairman of the Bond Accountability Commission, soon to be emeritus. I've been serving this role for 2 years now, and the time for some evolution in this committee has come. I'm going to deliver a brief written statement on our annual report and then talk about continuation here for a couple minutes at the end. Excuse me, I'm getting over a cold. The Bond Accountability Commission, the BAC, is a citizens advisory committee which was created in November of 2017 by the school board to assist primarily in the monitoring of the progress of the administration's execution of the capital construction bond measure passed in 2013. This commission is a successor to the FAC, which was the Facilities Accountability Committee, which was created prior to the construction of the high school. It was a much broader scoped committee and focused on a variety of issues. The BAC was formed for the junior high school project or middle school projects, much narrower in scope. We focus on bringing community members in with experience in finance, construction, engineering, architecture, or project management. And specifically, we're charged in bringing the focus of this committee to bear on several areas of operations, including not only the junior high school projects, but also the use of permanent improvement funds and also on the development and implementation of Phase 2 of the Master Facilities Plan. So Last year's report was delivered in June by committee member David Tabor. At that time, the commission was able to report a significant bid day savings in the initial February GMP budget, which had allowed for the addition of several alternates to the middle school projects. However, by the time of that report, we were also aware of several design omissions, which could have had a significant impact on the budget. However, with those costs not fully known, we were able to recommend a conservative approach, and ultimately, we are able now to report that the middle school projects have concluded their construction phase and that they were delivered not only on time, but also appear to be prepared to deliver under budget. And given the complexity of these projects, that is by no means any small feat. The primary deliverables of new HVAC, which by the way, heat record today, I think, for the city of Cleveland. My daughter was very pleased to have air conditioning in her sixth grade classroom. Also, technology upgrades, new interior finishes, new electrical, flooring, walls, ceilings, et cetera, are going to extend the life of these buildings for the foreseeable future. And have renovated these nice historic buildings for the next generation of students. So no small feat there. Pleased to deliver that good news, as everyone's already aware. In addition to the base scope, we were able to also add extensive renovations to the Monticello kitchens, which serve the junior high school and the neighboring elementary schools as well. We've added a state-of-the-art science classroom, actually two, I think, to Monticello. Door hardware upgrades, which improve functionality and building security, furniture upgrades in classrooms and common spaces. The cupolas were refinished, as well as some other important add items which have improved the condition of these projects in these buildings. So, as we learned with the high school project, the renovation of any existing structure carries the risk of unforeseen conditions, which can impact schedule and budget. These projects were no exception. We did experience several major conditions and construction problems throughout the course of the jobs, including the need to extend fire-rated partitions at Monticello, the expanded remediation of the composite floors at both buildings, Monticello gym ceiling remediation, a major water leak at Monticello, which was turned into a new auditorium ceiling, to our credit, and major additional roofing repairs. All of these potential setbacks were absorbed in stride and effectively managed by the construction team, which includes George, of course, on the administration side, and to some degree Scott and everyone else on the administration side as well. Doug Myers, the PMC Regency team, and also Turner Construction. So with the opening of this building, we've met the most significant milestone. Our final recommendations for this particular project would be on focusing on closing out the budget. This is a critical time. Even with the buildings complete, we still don't know where this is going to end up exactly with the negotiations of all the closeout contracts. And some of these resources are moving on, so we've encouraged the administration to continue to leverage the resources that were dedicated to the project to bring it through towards the end. So, last remaining deliverable is the Wiley Swing Space, where we sit right now. If you get a chance, drive by the back. They're removing the modular schools classrooms. But as of 8/27 report, there should be roughly a balance of $945,000 left on the books, which can be used with permanent improvement funds. So that's the substance of the report. I would just add that we are going to, I believe with the blessing of the administration and the school board, continue this committee in a different format. It's no longer going to be called the Bond Accountability Commission. It's going to be the Leigh Facilities Committee, I believe. And we'll return to the quarterly meeting schedule or as needed to address any particular items which come up, which might focus on the areas, the competencies of the committee. We do have some vacancies to fill, so I think sometime in the next few weeks, the administration will be posting and accepting applications online for new committee members, and we'll also be looking for a new chairman. I've enjoyed my time, but it's time to step down. I will hope to continue to serve, but we do need some new, fresh leadership. So if anyone knows people in the community who have experience in finance, construction, engineering, architecture, or project management who might like to donate their time, please encourage them to check out the district website. all I have.
Thank you. And thank you for your leadership and service.
Thank you, Dan.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dan, and thank
Appreciate
you
it.
for your time. I know you spent countless hours, and we greatly appreciate it. The project was much better for it. So can we give Dan a round of applause? And Dan, I believe one of the things that the committee, as it will morph into, is continuing to advise on the solar panels?
We will, yeah.
Excellent, thank you. I had received a question about that in an email, somebody saying, had anything, is that still ongoing? And yes, it will still be ongoing.
Yeah, we've been asked to look at the option of using the roof space at the high school for a solar array. That's a complicated undertaking. We have a lot of community members who are very passionate about it, though. We've been asked to help lend support to the analysis of those opportunities, which will continue.
Thank you.
Hey, Judy, can we just spend a couple minutes and sort of talk about how we're going to get this information out to the public
Sure.
a little bit? So, I mean, I think this is a significant report out. It's sort of an understatement. I mean, you stand here for like 5 minutes and you give the spiel, but the amount of work behind that and the expertise behind this committee is pretty vast. So we're essentially looking at a proposed essentially $900,000, I don't want to say gain, but we're ahead. So out of our entire bond between the phase one, which is Wiley Swing Space, the high school, and the middle schools, we essentially have $900,000 in the bank, subject to closeout. And there's some things that you've done for PI already that you've put in. I'm looking at you, George, because you're the
yeah.
permanent improvement person. So basically, the money, that $900,000 will go back and, pay that amount off. I think it's important that we get this up on the website. I mean, we are going to be likely putting a levy on the ballot in the spring, which we've already discussed, I mean, publicly, and we will
We're
continue
going
to
to
discuss.
discuss it again more tonight.
Public, so, I mean, I think it's important that the community understand that this is where we're at. I mean, we've had multiple different budgets that sit on top of budgets. I was approached by a realtor that basically said we are over budget at the high school. And it's like, well, you really have to look at the net of the project. We did not overspend the bond. And you have to look at the value that you got out of it. Some people are going to say, well, you spent too much in Wiley, you spent too much at the high school, you didn't spend enough in the middle schools. I mean, what kind of value? I mean, what did we get as a community? And, I'm hearing a lot of very positive things. You occasionally hear about, I wish you did this, I wish you did that. I mean, there's a lot of compromises that were made. I mean, but are we satisfied as a community on, what we got for the bond issue? And I have already reiterated that I'm satisfied. I mean, I think it's important, though, that we get this up on the website. People see it, they understand it. This is something that was voted on. People need to feel somewhat satisfied. I think the minute you walk in these buildings, people are just wowed.
They're gorgeous.
Yeah, they're really
Yeah.
very, very nicely done.
Yeah, I'm really proud that I feel like our middle schools and our high school they're set for the next generation, easily. And that's something to be proud of.
And, and I think that as we talk about what, the community received in terms of, what they got for the money, we expanded the project. We went significantly beyond the plan that was in the bond. And we did that in things like bringing those science classrooms back online. We did that in things like using it as a wonderful opportunity to make an overwhelming modification to Monticello's kitchen, to really bringing the Roxborough kitchen up to a much higher level. The Bond Accountability Committee, having had a chance to work with these people, they never cease to amaze and impress. We are so fortunate for having the diverse skill set and experience set in our community, and then among that community, having people who are willing to serve for, let me tell you, there's no glamour and there's no money, and there's just late nights, and not all of them even had kids in the district. But they shared the vision, the understanding of the importance of what was being done in their community. So we're very, very lucky. You know, you mentioned Wiley, and the story's not told. We don't know what the payoff was for Wiley yet, because we haven't figured out what's going to become of Wiley. And so we made some additions to Wiley, that's for sure. But looking for a cost benefit, we don't know yet, because that chapter's not written yet. Time will tell.
Well, knowing that we're going to continue this committee, is everyone okay with using the name Leigh Facilities Committee? I know that was a term that we used previously when we were trying to figure out facilities, but I mean,
I think it's the right name, and it's been a long enough time since the previous Leigh Facilities Committee that we can refocus its energy towards what we need now. I mean, it's the right name. Can I make one thing clear? We need to be very careful to distinguish pots of money. The bond issue, which was voted by the electorate, is a specific pot of money that could only be used for one thing. Well, three things: high school, middle schools. Our operating budget is a different pot of money that can only be used for one thing, and the permanent improvement funds are a third pot. So when we start discussing the need for a levy, that's because of our operating budget, and that's very different from this money here for capital construction. And we were fortunate to be able to use permanent improvement money up front to allow the middle schools to get more things than were in the original scope of work. That has to get reimbursed from the excess bond money back to the permanent improvement budget. So these things need to be kept very separate in real life, and they also need to be kept separate from each other in our minds, because I don't want anybody conflating, well, you've got all this extra money left over from the middle schools, why do you need to ask for a levy? It's like the money is required to be used only for specific things, and we can't go moving stuff around and shuffling. So I just want to say that out loud.
well, we know we have plenty of improvements required at the buildings that we have left.
Oh, yes.
Any further comment? Not, we will move on to the treasurer's report. Thank you, Dan.
Yes, thank you, Dan.
All right, so we have, under the treasurer's report, a five-year forecast for your approval tonight. Couple of significant things that have changed. We met with the Leigh Finance Committee back in September. I think it was the 4th. We had some good conversation with them. They gave some good feedback. We incorporated their feedback into this five-year forecast. We also have some clarity on some questions that were outstanding. We know that the student success and wellness money, we can use existing student wellness and success initiatives for that money. What I just found out just recently, and will affect the next forecast you see, is that they actually, as Molly has said, there are different pots of money. The state has decided that they want those student wellness dollars stripped out of the five-year forecast and put in a separate fund. So we'll take the money out of the forecast, and we'll also take the corresponding expense out of the forecast. So it won't change the bottom line of the forecast, but all that money, you're going to see a decrease in the numbers, and all that money has to go in. I think it's Fund 467.
So it will be accounted for separately from everything else?
It will be accounted for separately, yes.
Okay.
So that's okay. It's just a little bit of accounting work, but that's why we're here. The other big burning question was about the cap and whether or not we would remain on the cap or we would not. I was down in at a session last week that was hosted by OASBO, and ODE was there, and they made it very clear that all districts are frozen at the same level of state funding that they received in fiscal 2019 for the next biennial budget. So whether you were on the cap, whether you were on the guarantee, whatever funding you received in fiscal 19 is what you will receive in 20 and in 21.
Except for what they take out before they send it.
That's correct. So you're gonna receive the
Yes.
same amount of money regardless of any fluctuations in the number of
But
students.
more is going out
But
the
if you
back
have
door.
more Ed Choice students or Ed Choice vouchers, the deduct does increase. So that question has been resolved, and we know that. And that's what we had built into the forecast as a worst-case scenario. So that's, we were hopeful that we would get some positive news there, but we didn't. So that's the case with the cap. We did get some significant movement on the encumbrance number that we carried forward from the previous year. And Keisha's not here anymore, but our Tiger team member from the board, Keisha Cox, she's in the accounts payable department. So she spent a lot of time going through the encumbrances, and this was part of the feedback from the Leigh Finance Committee. And we told them that we were going through every purchase order to see what we could close and what we couldn't close. We were able to close a lot of the carryover encumbrances that we had from the previous year. So that improved the bottom line. In the end, it's not, it doesn't affect the need for a levy. We still have that because we're spending more than we're bringing in. But we did get some positive movement there too, so we're happy. The Leigh Finance Committee also suggested that we trend the Peterson and Autism scholarships a little bit. We had those flatlined, and based on history, they thought those should go up about 5% in the conversations that we had with Sharon Roller, our EMIS coordinator. So that's been built into the forecast too. So right now, this
That's why the
forecast we
numbers
have
are
before
growing.
you is our best estimate of everything we know at this point in time. The only thing, as I said, I could see changing in the foreseeable future will be stripping out those dollars and the wellness dollars and the corresponding expense, but it won't affect the bottom line. That's what we have for the 5-year forecast.
So can you just, I know we're repeating ourselves, but, some people tune in and they tune out of this conversation, but just for the sake of clarity, when we were on the ballot, essentially 3.5 years ago, the intent was to go back in year. No, it would have been go back in the third year.
Correct.
So what we've done is we've been able to stretch the last school levy another full year.
Correct.
You've made essentially $750,000 worth of cuts, but indirectly there's other cuts because you've been able to trim the budget in order to make the levy last longer. So there's still the commitment of essentially cutting a compounded $750 a year. So now it's a
That's
compound 1.5 million. Yes, we're getting new student wellness money in, but we also have, voucher monies going out the door. We know people are getting phone calls from pro-voucher advocates saying it doesn't cost your school district a penny if someone uses a voucher. We know that, just tell me if I'm wrong here. I already know the answer, but
You're correct.
100% of every voucher dollar, new voucher dollar that goes out the door is coming out of our local funds. We are on a state cap. It doesn't matter student counts anymore. We get a fixed amount of money from the state. So if the state designates our high school to be a voucher school using data from 2013, I think I got those two numbers right, 2013, 2014, but dated information, that's money that's coming out of our local resources.
Correct.
So I have a question about the cap. So we are capped as if we have X number of students.
Yes.
Do you know how close, what is that number and how close are, we're at about 5,200 students district-wide.
Right, we were already capped. If we were getting the money we should have gotten, I want to say the last estimate I saw would have been, we would have a couple of $1 million more annually in state funding if we were receiving all the money we should for the students we have.
Because, in many districts that are not capped, you get X number of dollars, and it varies district to district depending upon income of, of the host cities, et cetera, because the state can't make anything easy. But, so when they expanded vouchers, to students who no longer have ever had to touch a Cleveland Heights University Heights public school, that's all just additional dollars, just out the door. Those students had never been counted in our average daily membership. So really, we are, I don't know if you want to say we're getting double hit or triple hit, because a student takes about 3 times what we get from the state. So it's really a remarkably negative phenomenon that has hit us.
And we're hopeful that at some point during this biennium, and I can, that the new school funding proposal and the Cupp-Patterson proposal that's out there might offer some relief, but it's costly for the state to fix the school funding formula. That's why most districts are either on the cap or they're on a guarantee. So there's either a cap or a floor. Very few districts are actually getting the amount of money they should for the number of students they have. So, that's the whole impetus for the Cupp-Patterson proposal, is to say, let's figure out what this should be, but that costs more money than the state's willing to provide, so.
Yeah, but, well, we know that number. 15% of the school districts in Ohio
Correct.
live by the formula that's in Ohio Revised Code. 85% are on some kind of exception, like us.
Cap or guarantee, correct.
So, I mean, is it a broken school funding formula?
Yeah.
Yeah, when even it applies to 15% of the school districts? Yeah, I think it's kind of broken. I mean, it's,
Right. Now, when you say that you move the wellness dollars out of this budget,
We will. So,
Okay.
yeah, the state wants those wellness dollars tracked in a separate fund.
okay, so before we had accounted this in this budget, we accounted the wellness dollars, so.
Both the dollars and the money that we would spend on it, the expense. So we'll
Okay.
just move both sides of that equation out of the 5-year forecast and into another fund.
Okay.
So we'll have the amount of money we're gonna receive, and then we're gonna have how we're gonna spend it, so both of it comes out. So the 5-year forecast, the overall dollars will look less, but the bottom line will stay the same.
Okay.
is that going to be a negative impact on our audit?
In fact, the auditor state's the one who's insisting that, so ODE consulted the auditor of state and said, then they jointly decided this is the way they want to handle those funds.
Okay.
Well, but sometimes they'll make a change, and then all of a sudden, they don't give you a clean audit in a change that they just made. I just want to make sure that.
Oh, yeah, no, I
it's-
wouldn't
it's-
expect that would be an issue. We have written guidance from ODE and from the auditor of state's office that this is the way they want this handled. All districts are going to be handling it this way. What it does do is when you look at, historically at the 5-year forecast, when they change these funding pieces and parts this way, often it's difficult to go back and the trends don't look.
Because there'll be a
It's
jump,
odd.
right.
Something's happened, you have to explain why it changed, why that dropped, why there's not as much money as there should have been, so. But no, it won't affect the audit at all. The auditors are clear, although a lot of treasurers are not happy because they did as we did, which was, you put the money in the 5-year forecast, that's where the cost is, but they want it out, so.
And they're still
That's what we'll do.
conducting the audit?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Every year, and they're still here, and they'll probably be here through,
Yeah,
I'm gonna
gee.
guess December,
Okay.
yeah.
That's okay. I mean, if they should dig as deep as they need to.
Yeah,
I
it's,
mean,
it's.
we've had clean audits, we're above board on all this stuff. Let them spend as much time as they need to.
that's
Now, you
true.
didn't add the student wellness success line in until September's 5-year forecast. So we've only got 2 months
Correct.
of forecasts which show it, and next month it'll be gone anyway, so.
Right.
Well, it's just a blip.
It'll be a blip, and what'll be the blip when you look back in history will be the actual expense coming out.
Yeah.
The salaries will look low for the years because we'll be moving social workers, nurses, those kinds of.
To that fund,
Yeah, to
right.
those funds.
Okay.
So more to come on
It
that.
is what
The
it
Leigh
is.
Finance Committee is meeting again. We're trying to nail down a date. I just sent something out again today. We tried for the 16th. That didn't work. I think we're looking at the 24th. And so we'll have the Leigh Finance Committee get together one last time, review this forecast, They're going to look at mill mods, and they're going to come before you at the regular meeting in November with their recommendation for millage for the.
Remind us what a mill mod is?
It's where we take the 5-year forecast, look at the amount of money we're bringing in, the amount of money we're spending, and what the needs are over a certain levy period. And so it's millage, a millage model, mill mod.
We have a, I don't know, I've got a placeholder for a whole joint meeting with UH, and also there's a formal meeting, joint city council meeting.
We are not going to have the UH meeting on the 24th.
Right.
October
Of
24th,
which
because
month?
we just had the four-way joint meeting.
So then we won't have the city
Which was
council meeting then
fantastic.
either.
Correct, yeah.
Yeah, I talked to Mayor Brennan, we decided we didn't need to have an additional meeting, we just met.
And that's the October 24th one?
Yes.
Nix, okay.
Yes.
And I think, Jim, you said you were back in town?
I'm
then?
back on the 23rd late, so, I mean, well, I don't vote. I mean, do you need a quorum?
No, all the other members, not everyone could come on the 16th, though. I know you weren't available, but others couldn't as well, so that's why I moved it from the 16th to the 14th. So far, I've heard from most members that the 24th will work, so.
Okay, so I'm going with Jody. You mentioned we're going to talk about the levy sometime tonight.
Yes,
So when
and
we're
my
ready to
report.
talk about that,
Very good, all right.
Okay, we're going to talk about that in my report, but first we got to vote
Okay.
to approve this 5-year forecast, even though we know it's going to change.
Correct.
yeah, that's what it is. It's the-
So,
I motion that we accept the 5-year forecast as offered by Mr. Gaynor.
thank you.
second.
Thank you. Mr. Gainer, will you call the roll?
Lewis,
Yes.
Ms. Wright,
Yes.
Mr. Posh.
Yes.
Mr. Hunt.
Yes.
Ms. Ray.
Yes. All right, so now on to the board president report. And we are going to talk about the levy, I promise you, but the first two things I need to mention before that is the homecoming parade. Just a reminder, I have registered us to be in it, so if you can make it, we got to get the banner from Kathan and wear your jerseys that we wore before. And
The football jerseys?
The
Is that
football
the uniform
jerseys,
of
yes,
choice? Okay,
yes, the
good.
football jerseys,
That's the 11th.
yes.
Friday, the 11th?
11th.
We rendezvous at 4 or 4:30.
4:30, I believe, was.
4:30 on Scarborough Road.
Yep, yep.
Lineup.
Yep. And I will bring, I still have the leftover tiger tattoos and
Excellent.
stickers,
I
so
need some of those.
I will bring those. The second thing I wanted to mention before we get into the levy discussion is the Reaching Heights access to info about Cleveland Heights University Heights Public Schools. That is taking place tomorrow at 6:30 to 8:30 at the Delisle Center.
And I will be again at parent-teacher conferences in beautiful Geauga County.
We will represent you well.
Thank you.
All right. Now, I want to talk about levy. We just saw the 5-year forecast. We know that's not changing appreciably. Mr. Gaynor just let us know that the Leigh Finance Committee will be meeting. I was doing a quick calculation on, we have to vote and if we decide that we want to put a levy on the ballot, we have to let the county know no less than 75 days before and no more than 95 days before the next election. That would be March 17th is the primary. That would be if we chose to go in the spring. And that means we have to have 3 readings before that. I was guessing, we only need 2? Oh,
Yeah,
that
we
makes
need
it better.
we need a first reading, then the county will certify, and then you'll accept their certification.
You need a couple days for them to certify.
And you
it.
need
Right.
some time in between the
Right.
two, yes.
Well, by my calculations, the last date that we could get the last reading in would be December 17th. That's our regular meeting in December. If you remember, our earlier meeting in December is to pick the library board. So that's a special meeting that's happening on December 3rd, so that would not be a meeting that we would do a reading at typically, because typically the superintendent and the treasurer don't attend that meeting. So that means our next meeting before that would be either the November 19th work session or the November 5th regular meeting. So if we really think we're going to go in March, we need to have that first reading probably by November 19th, so we can do the next reading by December 17th.
Can we do that first reading November 1st? I mean, I think we need to give some opportunity for,
November 5th.
I meant the first meeting we have in
Yeah,
November.
there you go, November 5th, yeah, okay.
So, I mean, I think we need to give the community time to give us some feedback on this. I mean, we know where it has to go, but, I mean,
We
we
will
still
know.
need, yeah, we need to get some feedback, so.
Okay, so that's what we should shoot for then.
On the 5th of November.
Yeah,
Yep.
I agree.
At our regular meeting would be the first reading.
Okay, so I'll speak with legal counsel and have them draft the resolution that needs to happen for that. We'll leave the millage amount blank. So
Until we get a
Leigh-
report from
Until you
Leigh.
get the Leigh Finance Committee to report to you, and you can have your conversation and make your determination.
Right.
Pass your resolution, we'll get it to the county and have time to get it back.
Yep.
Okay.
Because other option would be to wait until the November election, but looking at the 5-year forecast, remember, we would have to
We
make
run out of money.
significant cuts before we even got to the ballot.
Yeah.
And I think that would be irresponsible as an elected body.
Yeah.
Well, please.
Okay, so I think there's a couple things that have to happen here. So there is this whole conversation that we need to have, and I think we need some time to kind of go over the mill model that the Leigh Finance Committee has. I mean, we all know the math. We know what a mill is equal to approximately, in our world, $1 million. I mean, so we see the deficit, so we can do the math ourselves, and I would encourage all of you to do that math. But I mean, we have to have a public conversation about it. I mean, the issue here is sometimes it gets a little bit political, and you want to drive the number down as low as possible to try to then get staff to not, adjust your budgets accordingly. I mean, I think that's a conversation that has happened with school districts in the past. So hypothetically, you say that, well, let's put instead of a $7 million levy, I want to put a $5 million levy on it, and that's me, that's the royal eye, I suppose, thinking for all of us. And we need to see an additional $2 million in cuts, and what those $2 million in cuts would look like. I mean, so there's a lot of different permutations that this could, well, I mean, there's a lot of directions that this could go in, okay? I mean, and it's good to start with what the Leigh Finance Committee gives us as sort of like a starting point.
Right.
I also would like to see, if it's okay with staff, is start doing some models on what it would be like if the levy does not pass. So we know what our deficit is going to be. I have seen school districts, this school district, years ago go down this path where they actually earmarked departments and they earmarked positions. So if the levy doesn't pass, you're going to have to do pay for sports. You're going to have to, we're going to cut the newspaper. We're going to cut this. We're going to cut, half the athletic programs. I don't think it's constructive to get to that level of detail. But I think what would be helpful is to understand the FTEs so we can see what it would do with class size.
And programs.
Well, I mean, I guess I'd leave that up to staff. I mean, if there's certain things that you see as really low-hanging fruit that we could cut, we can look at that. I mean, what I'm a little bit concerned about is, we're spending money on these programs right now. We obviously feel like they're valuable, okay? So in the threat of a levy, why would we be cutting them if we didn't feel like they were valuable? I mean, I think.
Right.
Well, we
mean-
just honored our, very successful scholars earlier this evening.
Yes.
We can't be in a position to cut our AP program.
Or we just recognized our amazing art program.
Yeah, I mean, it's just
And-
insane.
And we had on stage tonight representatives of a cross-section of the trades, which is, you don't have to learn much about this district before you realize that those men and women save this district money.
Yeah.
Lots
Every
of money.
day.
This very room is an example of the money savings that those people bring to the district. And another thing, just to piggyback, we've already started cutting. We've cut 1.5 million from the budget in the last 2 years. So to talk about low-hanging fruit, I think it's going to be hard to find that low-hanging fruit.
Well, there's also another
Yes,
thing
it
here.
will.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's also another issue here too. I mean, we went through a very dynamic negotiation with our staff. And there were concessions that were made on a lot of sides. There's teachers that will tell you that they feel like the cuts that we all agreed to, both sides, to the health care, give them a lot of concern. This is, I mean, that is a cut that everybody is sharing in. Okay, so, I mean, there's a lot of work that has been done to save money. The implementation of Google Classroom, and, I mean, there's been tons of little things that have been added in. But, I mean, I think maybe at the first go-around is, can you get us some raw number of what it would mean as far as headcount goes?
Yeah,
And
we
then-
can use an average to figure out some FTE.
Yeah, so
numbers.
then at
Sure.
that point, what we could do is we can then translate that into really class sizes. Because we all know our biggest expense is essentially teachers. It's going to mean class size. I mean, you can proportionally cut.
Right. We're a person industry. It's 80% of our budget, just as it is for, hospitals and any sort of an industry that is human-centered. And I think, I appreciate, that you don't necessarily want to identify specific positions. However, I will say that I think that that's a somewhat slippery slope, because people tend then, if the levy doesn't succeed, then they say, you run the risk of, well, I knew you were going to cut positions, I didn't know you were going to cut that position. Where I think that there may be I think that's just important to give voters as much concrete information as we can. And I think things like, if it's not individual programs and heaven knows, individual people, we got to be prepared to say that there's going to be changes in pay to play, which we don't do and at all, really, which is extremely rare. And I'm not, believe me, I'm not advocating that we begin it, but I think that we could have a model prepared for that. I think that we could have a model prepared for busing changes, because we do bus beyond the state minimum at the moment. So I think as much information as we can give our voters to educate them on really what's at stake, I really think that there's great value to that.
Well, in the far past, not in the recent past, but the far past, there were games that were played with busing. I think there were things that were played to sort of excite a base of people to vote for your levy. And I think we need to take the high road. The high road has been taken over the last, at least the last decade, because those are the campaigns that I've been a part of. But we don't go out and we don't tell people we're cutting our precious music programs, okay? So to get all the music people to vote for the levy. I mean, I think I don't want to play any games. I mean,
I'm not saying that we should ever play games,
Well,
but we cut music before we cut reading. I mean, it's just, those things that make us such an amazing school district, that are so far beyond those state minimums. If you start ranking the fruit, that's what you have to do.
Yeah, and I think the community has to understand. I mean, the state theoretically gives you enough money, from their opinion now, to operate.
Yes.
That's 35% of our budget.
Right.
Okay? I mean,
Right.
there's a reason why school funding has been declared at a nonpartisan level unconstitutional multiple times.
It's a lie. the funding system, I mean, that, the notion that we could operate, that we could educate all of our students on 35% of what we're spending is just a lie.
So any more discussion about the levy? And things we need to be making thoughtful decisions in the next few weeks?
Where's the aspirin?
I was gonna say, I'm depressed. I'm just gonna sit here and stare at this five-year
Well, then I will move
forecast.
along to
Yeah.
the board committee reports. Do any of the board committees have a report to make?
The Heights Schools Foundation is gearing up and very, very excited about the homecoming festivities that are coming our way. Let's see, what else? The Heights Coalition for Public Education met this past week. Malia and I were there. They are very engaged around the expansion of vouchers issue. They have been working very closely with, among others, the legislative liaisons associated with the Ohio Federation of Teachers, and working with quite a bit of budget information, trying to lay out a plan that would hopefully put some pressure on the Ohio legislature to change their minds. So certainly actively engaged on behalf of our students.
Reaching Heights Board met earlier this month, and they're gearing up for homecoming. And PTA Council met last week, and they are gearing up for a big district-wide fundraising event at a basketball game, January the 5th at the Cavs. So if I understand the process, it's about selling tickets to that particular game to everybody in the district, and then we own the excitement and festivities there. So each school will be selling tickets and selling T-shirts, so that there's a big block of people.
That was January the 5th, you said?
Yeah, it's a Sunday night game.
Against the Lakers?
I don't know who it's against.
I doubt it.
Sunday the 5th, that's all I know. Cleveland Heights Cavs Takeover Night, it's called. So the goal is to have a huge chunk of spectators in Loudville all wearing Heights gear. That's all I know.
Any other committee reports? If not, is there any unfinished business?
I'm still researching solar panels and talking to people because I'm combining the school district with stuff I'm doing personally. And I'm learning an awful lot, and at some point I have to turn it into like 4 bullet points, but it's tough.
Okay. New business? Any correspondence and announcements?
Just quick, just to reiterate from our last work session, I will be absent. My heart will be with you folks for the next work session. So whatever information you could put up on board docs, I would like to, obviously like to look at, and I'll review the meeting. But, if you're looking for a quorum because you want to vote on anything, I won't be around. So.
I had a couple of correspondences that I thought are worth mentioning. I was speaking with some people who, I'll talk about the middle school. Mrs. Coleman had a meeting at Roxborough that I heard such great reports about, how she handled a meeting so very, very well and established, just sort of beginning to really establish the culture at Rox Middle School with parents and families. And it was a meeting about getting to know one another, what they can expect from her, what she needs to expect from them, establishing norms, expectations around communication. The parents who I spoke to who were in attendance were greatly comforted and really impressed with Mrs. Coleman. So I wanted to bring that up. And I also wanted to put Mrs. Kirby on the spot and congratulate her, because I also heard quite a bit about a meeting that Liz had with our high school coaches. And some of the coaches approached me, again, just expressing how much they appreciated the FaceTime with the superintendent, which has not been the norm recently, and how much they just absolutely appreciated it. And they were also struck by Liz's topic number one, which is putting every coach on notice, reminding them that they are a mandatory reporter of suspected abuse. And they were so impressed and so pleased for that reminder, because, you know, coaches have that very special relationship with the students who they coach. And knowing that this was a high priority was something that impressed them. Also establishing just sort of an open door was something that was clearly communicated to the coaches. So I say bravo and kudos to you.
I just want to say one thing. I have, I'm day 30 in my entry plan, but there has not been a group that I have met with who is not 200% committed to the district, 200% committed to the students. And it just really speaks to the strength of the Cleveland Heights, University Heights community, the schools, the students, the families, the leaders, the teachers, and the staff. And I felt the exact same way with the coaches. And I was impressed. The number of sports and sports opportunities, not only at the high school, but also at the middle schools as well.
Well, okay, so I need to step in to sort of piggyback on what you just said. So many of you know that part of the responsibility that Jody and I have are, we have meetings with staff and Elizabeth Kirby, every week, every other week. Well, you responded earlier in your report about climate and how you're dealing with, climate issues and how you're concerned about that. And so you didn't role play, but you were telling us a story about how, well, you really wanted to see the dismissal process at the high school, and you sort of, every opportunity you have, you want to be there and you want to watch it. So you do these walking meetings where instead of having a meeting in your office, you take a resource here and you walk around the building and have a walking meeting and just sort of see for yourself what's going on. Well, I'm thinking about Melissa Wood's comment to us tonight is, get out there. We expect you as leaders in this district to go out there and see for yourself. That is a perfect example of the kind of stuff that's going on. And I just want to say thank you. We're just so into that, and it's so exciting, and it's a little different style, and that's okay. But I really appreciate that work.
Thank you.
And that reminds me, you're supposed to let us know when you want board members to do our walkthroughs. Usually there's a time of the year that, and typically it's been like late January, early February. But it's better for us to be able to get that on our calendar sooner if we can at least block out the time and say, we know we're going to do walkthroughs at this time period. And one of the things I would personally like us to do is, in addition to visiting our traditional classrooms, I would like, as a board, we each go visit a CTE class as well. I know that's asking a lot to fit something else in your schedule, but one of the CTE classes that we teach, in addition to, I know we typically like to go to the elementary schools, and sometimes we'll go to the high school or we'll go to a middle school, but I also think we need to put more focus on our CTE program as well.
You can also add some rooms with intervention specialists. We keep on hearing from our staff who's dealing with lots of challenges in those rooms. I want to see some of this stuff for ourselves.
Yeah. It's I think we have to be, the truth is, it's not really challenging most of the time. When it's working, it's really not a challenge. And so my hunch is that you walk into a classroom, you wouldn't most of the time know that one of those people is an interventionist. But when the numbers really do get up, 65% of the students on 504s or IEPs that's not the design. Shouldn't happen that way. But very often it is, when it's working well, you don't know which one is the teacher, of record and which one is the interventionist. It's really a cool dynamic to watch and, be part of.
Good.
Yeah.
All right. So if there's no other comments, can I get a motion to close?
I motion that we adjourn.
Second.
Mr. Gaynor, will you call the roll?
Ms. Wright?
Yes.
Mr. Posh?
Yes.
Mr. Hines?
Yes.
Ms. Wright?
Yes.
Ms. Lewis?
Yes.
Thank you. We are adjourned.